Welcome to the definitive guide to DPA ads on Facebook. A lot of folks know these ads as easy ways to get retargeting going, but they're actually missing some very core competencies around it and some amazing opportunities like how to use it to do market research. Also, what are your audience requirements to really make this scale? And why does this actually super help our one campaign strategy? This is one of the core elements of what to do in the one step beyond one campaign. And if you're running any sort of store with more than 4 or 5 SKUs in it and you're not using DPA ads, I urge you to give it a shot. Now, it's not always the best for every single advertiser. It's not always the best for every single brand, but if you haven't tried it yet, this is untapped markets for you where you can be making really easy money and cash flow, especially if you're super high ticket and especially if you have a lot of SKUs. With that being said, let's dive into this. And before we get started, I just want to say this. I know you can be literally anywhere in the world right now, and I really appreciate you taking your time to be here with me today. I'm going to make sure that this is as useful and as helpful to you as possible. If you have any questions with the stuff, please feel free to write down in below what they are, and I will get back to you. Also, read the description of this. There's an insanely helpful article, and there are links down below to the Facebook Ads MBA program, which is the #1 resource to teach you how to be more than just a media buyer, but actually a brand building CMO that will give you the strength, skills, and abilities with framework and repeatable systems and process to take just about any brand that can succeed to a place far above and beyond anywhere that you might be able to get it without. And also, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter at newsletter.facebookdisruptor.com to make sure that you see helpful information in your inbox on a weekly basis. There's so much more in there, but we'll not try to drive all of that. Go down, ring the bell, subscribe. Let's get started. So, we all know and love DPA ads as, what we ultimately end up using to do retargeting often, right? And we know it from that resource, and to be fair, that's a great use case of it. But when we are doing retargeting with DPA ads, we also have to remember that we need to understand what the right audience is. And we could also go broad with it, what we call DABA, Dynamic Ads for Broad Audiences. So there's a lot of applications here. That being said, let's dive into understanding what audiences you should actually use and what those requirements really are for this to be meaningful to you at all in the first place. First thing we need to understand is what is the level of investment that we're willing to make in running our DPA ads. Is it $20 a day? Is it $1,000 a day? Is it 10% of our budget? Is it 50% of our budget? We also need to understand something else. What does success look like? And are we going to be able to use this audience in a way where we're going to be able to leverage machine learning because we're getting out of the learning phase? Or ultimately, are we using this retargeting audience primarily to push cash flow, even though we're not able to necessarily leave the learning phase, but because strategically that audience is so effective for us, we can still get good results? Those are all really great questions, and you need to have the answers to those questions before you get started. So let's break down the #1 thing. What audience should we run this against anyway? Well, the easiest answer is go view content last 7 days and see what happens. Now, that's going to be helpful, maybe, hopefully, and that's a decently educated guess. But there's a lot of there's much better ways of looking at this and a lot more information that you should be looking at. First off, let's try to understand what the CPMs are going to be at our DPA. Let's say it's $50 CPMs. Okay. Now let's say we're willing to spend $100 on a DPA ad. Okay. That means we are likely to see 2,000 impressions. Okay. Now let's say that we are ultimately gonna see a good result around a baseline of 2 impressions per day per user. That's a decent expectation in a retargeting audience. All right. So that means on a daily basis, we have enough money to realistically reach about 1,000 people. Okay. Now, we also know that at best, If you get extreme saturation and a really high frequency, maybe you're going to reach 50% of any target audience. Okay. So that means in order to reach an audience of 1,000 people 2 times with your $100 a day budget, you're going to need an audience that's at least 2,000 individuals. Good to know. Now, how do we determine what that audience even looks like? Well, you can go in and guess, or you can go into your events manager and start to play around with parts of the funnel and timelines. You can get up to 28 days worth of information, and if it's longer than that, you can extrapolate the information. But let's just say, what is the add to carts over the last week? Now, it's probably not unique, but if add to carts over the last week is 300 people, you can pretty much guarantee that there's no way you're going to be able to use an add to cart audience with any recency of a month or less with a DPA ad. There's just not enough people. Now, maybe you can get 50, 60 bucks a day and you get a couple sales out of it, but you're going to be hammering a lot of people with your ads that don't want to buy. Remember, the vast majority of people in a retargeting audience are not going to convert. Let's say it's a 10% conversion rate and there's 1,000 people in that audience. That means 900 people have no interest in your product. That means that if you are reaching, say, 400 or 500 people a day, and let's say it's 500, 450 of those people, 900 out of those 1,000 impressions are bad. Let's use a real world example. If you've shown an interest in, say, a vacuum cleaner, and then for the next month, a vacuum cleaner salesman comes to your door twice a day to try to sell you, by like day 2 or 3, you're going to hate that person. How many people do you think hate your brand right now? Do you think that's ultimately helpful for your relationship with Facebook as an advertiser? Yeah, you're making sales, but is that really a good thing? Long term, is the upside of revenue offsetting the damage that is being done? That's a probably no. So we need an audience that's much larger than that. And also, if I added to cart 27 days ago, and I haven't added to cart ever since, and you've been knocking on my door twice a day, do you think that I'm going to change my mind all of a sudden? Answer's probably no. Plus, I'm probably also seeing your targeting, your ads in broad targeting if I have any interest in the brand. So that recency also plays a pretty big part. How many days are you willing to bother somebody incessantly after they already tell you no? What if this was dating? Do we live in a world where you think that when somebody says no, please stop, your best thinking is to bother them repeatedly, multiple times a day for weeks on end until they change their mind? But that's the theory behind basically all retargeting on Facebook. So when we use retargeting with DPA ads, we have to get above and beyond that. Let's assume that $50 CPM and $100 budget. And again, these are just very round numbers. Yours might be very different. I've seen DPA ads as low as $20 CPMs and as high as 100, right? I've used it on budgets that are $20 a day and as high as a couple thousand. So just using round numbers here. So instead, maybe our focus should be, let's find an audience that's 4,000 or 5,000 people with a little bit of recency. Now we can go back to that events manager and see, well, we've got 5,000 view contents in the last week. Let's use that. Those aren't necessarily unique pixel events. What if somebody views your product multiple times or multiple products? A great way to decipher this is, using your Google Analytics or site insights and determine how many pages does the average person look at. Divide that view content number by that page view number, and you're going to get to some factor. Let's say an audience is 5,000 people, and the average person looks at 1.8 web pages. Let's use an easy number. Let's say it's 2. Okay, then that 5,000 view content is really maybe 2,500 people. Well, let's double the timeline out to 2 weeks. Now it's roughly 5,000 people. 5,000 people. Now we're getting in a spot where we aren't bothering everybody constantly. Our frequency is probably going to be lower on a day. And because we're driving enough interactions, as people fall out of that window, new people fall in. And now we're sitting in a situation where if that works, we can also scale our budget. That's a phenomenally better situation than just saying, I'm going to do this. Now, mind you, if you have a lot of volume, for instance, I was sitting in a spot where I was getting 1,000 add to carts in a week, sometimes a day. I would go add to cart one day with DPA and I was crushing. But I was also spending like $30,000 to $50,000 a day on a brand where that was reflective of 40% of revenue. So just understand your audience requirements and the impact it has on your business and why retargeting is not a good idea most of the time. And when it is a good idea, Broad is already doing that for you. So if you have any questions about this stuff, please write below and look down below. There's an article in here that's also going to be very, very helpful for you to understand this stuff. If you like this, please go ahead and tap like, go ahead and subscribe. If you're listening on the audio podcast, set it for download. You don't even have to listen. I'd appreciate it a lot. And if you really value this information, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter at newsletter.facebookdisruptor.com or check out the MBA program at mba.facebookdisruptor.com. Now, let's look at another side of DPA, which is something I find is criminally underappreciated. And by that, I mean, I see literally no one talking about it, even though it is potentially the most valuable part of DPA outside of the cash flow. Market research. Did you know that in a dynamic ad, just like in dynamic creatives, where you can go to breakdown, delivery, and look at the spend, whatnot, by element, you can also go in and look at the breakdown by product ID. Now, if you go into the Facebook and you see breakdown and you see delivery and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to see product ID. Now, the amazing thing about this is it lets you actually see how much spend went to each SKU or even each variant ID within your product catalog. Now, this is great because it's going to let you know, well, what do people actually want to see? Much like in dynamic creative, where Facebook is showing people the copy and the content that is most likely to get them to engage and have a positive experience. With DPA ads, it's also showing them the products that's most likely to get them that experience. And wouldn't you love to know when somebody's walking through your store what they're actually interested in? What if you mailed them a catalog and you knew every single page that got dog-eared and every single product that was circled and everything else? Because when you run DPA ads, you have that information. Now, the best part about this is you could easily take that info and then index it by level of intent. What if you have an add to cart from the last 14 days and a view content from the last week? What is the difference in delivery by product? Is the abandoned cart product in that audience of folks that have abandoned cart, the product IDs that get the most spend, does it match what happens when people are just shopping around the store? What's really interesting here is it lets you know what products people are window shopping on and what products people are legitimately interested in. And when they've already rejected your primary offer, What products get them most interested to come back into the store? Now, I've used this to develop bundles. I've used this to ultimately shift what our hero products are. It's also excellent to understand what your pre and post-transactional upsells should be. What if, when somebody went to your primary product and they checked out, you offered them the 2 or 3 other products that most people were actually interested in when given the chance to navigate freely, and shown the products that they were most interested based on their traffic around the entire internet and their behavior in the real world? This is a game changer. Remember, the most popular products by just actual site visits and volume of sales generally aligns with whatever's being promoted the most. So you can't look to, well, these are the products we sell the most, if you're not promoting every product evenly. I'm not saying you should ever promote all the products evenly. What I'm saying is, there's a product you are selling the most. There might also be a product that maybe it's your 4th bestseller, but it's getting you a ton of traffic when you give Facebook the opportunity to show your catalog. And maybe that's because that's a really well-selling product in the market, that you have a solution that is getting you attention. That is incredibly helpful information. Also, if you have variants, wouldn't it be interesting to know that the red shoe is getting 10 times as much spend as the blue one? What about the blue bra is getting 10 times the amount of spend as the white one? That's good information. Maybe I can use that information to change my landing page or my product images or my creative on the front end outright. The point here is your market, the people that you're targeting with ads, with DPA, or in this case, DABA as well, which is just DPA, but to a broad audience instead of retargeting. They're giving you tremendous information. And if you're not indexing this spend against product to take actionable insight, you are missing, I would consider, the vast majority of the value of that DPA spend. Now, some people will look at DPA and say, look, this is amazing. I'm able to get a 3x ROAS. I don't care about a 3x ROAS on a little bit of spend every day. I care about the information that's going to give me a 10% boost in conversion rate on my landing page. I care about the information that's going to give me a 20% lower CPA because I've been able to give creative direction to my content developers for my primary ads. I'm interested in knowing what product most people are likely to take as an upsell so I can improve my AOV by 70%. That's phenomenally more important than a couple sales a day, or even a couple dozen, because these are mountain moving decisions. Again, that's why we use broad audiences. That's why we use dynamic ads. That's why we index for performance and we understand the information being given, because the vast majority of the value of Facebook is the amplification of our existing business model. If you're not letting your customers tell you exactly what they want and then responding to that, you're being negligent to the upside of your business. Now, I'll give you a real world example of this that stunned and amazed me and fundamentally changed the way I thought about retail. I'm sure you've heard of this brand called, or the store called Hot Topic. Now, Hot Topic is really cool if you're like 14. What Hot Topic did in the mid-90s was they sold all the sorts of stuff that, you know, teenagers were into. But one of the things they did is they had a little notebook on the counter at every store that said, hey, if we don't have something, let us know what you want. And it was the job of the manager of every store to send in this information. What Hot Topic was able to do was pull their audience to understand what products those customers wanted. And as a result, they were able to stay ahead of the retail curve from grunge to emo to anime. Sometimes years ahead of their competitors because they were responding to what their customers wanted. The point here is your customers are giving you a wealth of information. Your job is to take advantage of that. And if you're not looking at the index of spend by product or variant ID within your DPA ads, you are neglecting potentially the most valuable investment into business intelligence that you're going to get from Facebook ads. Because Facebook ads generally don't steer the ship, right? They're the engine that sits in the back. They're not telling you where to go. They're pushing you in the direction that you've already decided. DPA ads, though, can be the scouts that let you know, should I keep going north or west or east? If you want to remove the guesswork, just respond to the needs of your market that they're already telling you with their eyeballs and money. That's how you scale. That's how you succeed. If you have any questions about this stuff, please comment below. Let me know. Sign up for the newsletter at newsletter.facebookdisruptor.com. The Shape of Disrupt to Come is the weekly newsletter I send out every week with fun deals and discounts and bundles and interviews and articles and blogs and videos to you on a regular basis so that you can stay at the bleeding edge of all of this stuff. And if you really want to up your game and be light years ahead, just like Hot Topic was, check out the MBA program. Now, last thing that I'll get to here is, why does running DPA actually tremendously help our one campaign accounts? Now remember, our one campaign accounts don't necessarily have only one campaign in them. It is one campaign per business objective. If you have multiple business objectives, you could have multiple campaigns. So what's the business objective of DPA? Well, there's a couple of things. Maybe you're running it at $20 a day just so you can do market research and index your crowd on what is the psychological difference between somebody that views content and somebody that adds the cart. Maybe you're running it excluding everybody that's ever been to your site and seeing what products you have that are most interesting to get somebody's attention to want them to shop with you anyway. Effectively having a dynamic window display. That's phenomenal. Maybe you have a super high ticket like $1,000 product or $5,000 product. Maybe you're running lead gen or training or furniture or some bespoke custom items. You might not have the budget to run Facebook conversion ads and leave the learning phase and sell those $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 products. But that doesn't mean that if you have ancillary vertically integrated product offerings, remember, if you missed the last week's video around LTV, please go check out the definitive guide to raising LTV because it's phenomenal and you should really look into it. There's also an ebook on the way for that too. So go check that out. If you have those, why not run DPA? I know a lot of brands that are running $1,000 products that sell a bunch of $20, $30, $50, $100 items and little bundles, accessories, right? Whether it's surfboards or fishing rods or bikes or furniture or a million other things. A lot of clothing brands and sneaker companies. You might not have the budget right now to realistically get out of the learning phase in your one campaign to those products. So maybe you're using Facebook more as a lead gen to a very effective email funnel. But that doesn't mean you have to give up on cash flow. If you were to use your DPA ads to sell lower ticket items to generate a positive cash flow, whether it's your brand or a client, you could probably pay for all of your overhead operational cost of running ads and profit from it, while improving the LTV of your existing customers and acquiring new ones. And you're like, well, hey, that doesn't make any sense for my brand. Let me tell you why that's not necessarily true. I'll give you 2 examples. Number 1, I was running New Balance. Now, their sneakers are not sexy, especially if you're like 25. But a lot of people wanted to be fit. Our DPA ads would show socks and jogger pants. We would show t-shirts and exercise accessories. Now, it's a sneaker company, but it's a sneaker company built around a culture of health and fitness, right? And primarily they were shifting between being the thing for old folks with nice things to runners and functional footwear. You might not be interested in that unsexy shoe that your grandma likes, but maybe we can start selling you on other things, and we can do so at a pretty nice profit. If you put all of your lower price items that have high profit margin into DPA ads, just retargeting individuals that are mildly interested in the brand or even prospecting to get market share, your business objective of that DPA could be customer acquisition and cash flow. I can't tell you how many people were struggling to sell $500 items and then ran DPA and they got to a couple $1,000s a day between DABA and DPA, selling a whole bunch of $20, $30, $50, and $100 products to people all over the world, and then sold a bunch of those $500 things as upsells in email. That's a game changer. Struggling 6-figure businesses that became 8-figure ones. 7-figure businesses that had plateaued and Facebook ads didn't work are now on the way to 9-figure exits. Looking at it this way. Also, I hear from a lot of folks, well, I've got several products to make a profit on. I'm going to sell all of them. Well, we know objectively that's a bad idea. When we look at PSM, we know that some products just have a much better return than others do. And it also, why invest in multiple places to keep Facebook dumber in extra areas? That also makes landing page testing less effective and raises the cost of creative testing. There's a million reasons why you should not be running like 3 offers from your Facebook page. There are very, very, very few reasons that you should ever do that. I'm at $30,000, $50,000 a day in some accounts, and I have maybe a second product. This is neither time or place for that. Go look at Definitive Guide to PSM and, creating bundles and adding LTV, all the definitive guides that we have. Go research those and you will get all of this information. There's also a great Everything You Need to Know series and Disruptor School guidebook series to all of this stuff. The point here is, what if your flagship product does a fantastic, your hero product does a fantastic job of getting people into the store, but not everybody wants to buy it? DPA could close the loop on all of those other things. What's also great is now your ads in your one campaign aren't the only touch point for a user. Meaning the frequency of your touch points with those customers is higher. Now, I see a lot of people say, well, first time impression rate means everything, and they're dead wrong. I've yet to see a single argument that says first time impression rate creates incremental lift for a business. In practice, there's no logic or math to back that up. I have yet to see literally anything that supports it. So let's say instead of hammering people over the head with the 3 to 5 really great ads that you have, they see a few of them, and then other touch points are just your entire catalog. Now those 3 to 5 ads aren't trying to sell to get you revenue. They're the thing that gets somebody interested in your brand. And if they don't buy that product, then the DPA ads can close the deals on the products that that person is most interested in. Maybe you're doing DPA in more of a DABA situation, where it's also doing prospecting for you. And when somebody shows an interest, now you can hit them with your broad ads in your single campaign to try to close the deal on your hero product, because those ads are also retargeting. And now you said, well, you're kind of interested in a few of these ancillary products, but have you seen our flagship one? Going back to another example, because I said I'd give you two. Let's say it's an outdoor brand, right? There's a great one that comes to mind of a fly fishing rod company. And you might be in the market for, a couple things, right? Maybe you're a fly fisher and you're checking out rods and you're checking out spools and you're checking all these things. We got a lure and you're like, hey, cool. This company also has lures. There's a few fun things in there. You click on the ad, you shop around, whatever. Now you've given us a signal you're in the market. And our top of funnel ads, our broad targeting ads, are retargeting you to upsell you from that low ticket item to the flagship one. And the conversion rate of that is going to be pretty good. And the estimated action rate of that ad is going to be pretty good, because you've already told us that you're interested. The beauty of this is there is a symbiotic relationship between how all of your campaigns function. A DPA ad might function very differently in your business model than your one campaign per business objective of your primary offer, where you're running DCTs at broad against a control environment. And if you strategize it properly, they can be force multipliers to each other. And that is what your primary effort should be. That is how you use DPA. That is how you scale a brand. That is how you have scalable, stable results for projectable, growing cash flow and customer acquisition. And if your goals aren't ultimately to produce that, they're not aligned with success. YouTube thinks you might like a couple of these videos. Don't be shy. Go ahead and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you on the internet. Bye.